Malene Kingsbury pulled her gym bag from the back seat of the minivan and walked toward the entrance of her local fitness center. The morning of March 31st, 2023, had begun like so many others before it. She was 26 years old, a clinical research coordinator at the Mayo Clinic, and a mother of two young children who depended on her for everything. Inside the gym, she moved through her workout with the quiet determination that defined her approach to life. She was the kind of person who showed up for her job, for her master's degree in public health administration, for her children, for everyone except perhaps herself. When she finished, she stepped back into the morning light and met her boyfriend, Adam Fravel, who had been waiting in the minivan. Together, they drove to drop the children off at daycare, completing a ritual they had performed countless times. The children were buckled into their seats, the doors closed. The daycare staff greeted them, as they always did. And then Adam drove away, with Malene still in the passenger seat. What happened in the hours that followed would become the subject of one of Minnesota's most extensive missing person investigations. By the time the sun set that evening, Malene would no longer be reachable by phone. Her wallet remained inside her home. Her keys were untouched. The bed sheets from the bedroom had vanished, and Adam Fravel, the man who had shared her morning, would return to pick up the children alone. He would tell police he last saw her around 10 in the morning, but the timeline he provided would soon begin to fracture under the weight of surveillance footage, digital records, and the testimony of those who knew Malene best. Winona, Minnesota rests along the western banks of the Mississippi River, a city of 26,000 people where historic brick buildings give way to rolling bluffs and dense woodland. It was here that Malene Jane Kingsbury was born on June 1st, 1996, the youngest child of David and Krista Kingsbury. She grew up in the shadow of those bluffs, attending local schools and developing a reputation among her peers as someone who carried warmth into every room she entered. Friends remembered her as the person who remembered birthdays, who checked in when someone was struggling, who showed up with coffee and a willingness to listen. She was dependable in a way that felt effortless, though those closest to her knew it required genuine effort. After graduating from Winona State University, she secured a position at the Mayo Clinic in nearby Rochester, a prestigious institution where she worked as a clinical research coordinator. Even as she built her career, she continued her education, enrolling at the University of Minnesota to pursue a master's degree in public health administration. It was during her time at the university that she met Adam Fravel, a student studying management information systems. Their relationship progressed quickly, and Malene became pregnant with their first child. The couple decided to build a life together. Adam left the university before completing his degree and eventually moved into advertising and online marketing. They welcomed a second child. From the outside, they appeared to be a young family navigating the ordinary challenges of parenthood and career. But when the pandemic arrived in 2020, Adam lost his job. The balance of their household shifted. Malene became the sole provider, working full-time while pursuing her master's degree, while Adam remained home with the children. What those outside the household did not see was a relationship that had begun to fracture long before the morning Malene disappeared. By early 2023, Malene and Adam were no longer a couple, though they continued to share the same home. Malene had made the decision to end the relationship approximately 6 months before she vanished, an agreement she reached with Adam after years of escalating tension. She had begun searching for a new place to live, hoping to finally establish a separate space for herself and her children. The reasons for the separation were known to her closest friends and family. Adam was no longer working. He spent his days at home playing video games, while Malene worked, attended graduate classes, and maintained the household responsibilities. Her parents frequently stepped in to help care for the grandchildren, but the deeper concern among those who loved Malene was not about who was doing the dishes. It was about what Adam was capable of when he became angry. One of Malene's friends had witnessed an incident during a FaceTime call that she would never forget. Adam began shouting at Malene because the house was not organized to his satisfaction. Malene responded by pointing out that he was the one staying home without working, and that if the house was disorganized, he was in the position to address it. The argument escalated, and in full view of the camera, Adam struck Malene across the face. Her friend watched helplessly from the other end of the call. After that incident, both her friend and her sister Megan urged Malene to report the abuse to police. Malene refused. She did not want the father of her children to face legal consequences. It was a decision born of love for her children, and it would have lasting consequences. When Malene did not return home on March 31st, and when she failed to respond to messages from her mother and her friends, the people who loved her began to understand that something was terribly wrong. Adam Fravel had already picked up the children from daycare that afternoon. He had driven to his parents' home in the nearby town of Mayo, and he had called one of Malene's friends, asking her to stop by the house to check on Malene. That friend, already concerned, was surprised to hear from Adam because she was already on her way. When she arrived at the house Malene shared with Adam, she found Malene's primary vehicle parked outside. Adam had taken his own car that day instead of the minivan. The friend knocked on the door. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. She called Adam to tell him Malene was not responding, and he immediately told her to contact the police. Officers arrived at the home and entered. What they found inside immediately raised alarms. Malene's phone was still there, resting somewhere inside the residence. Her wallet was there. The personal items she would need if she had gone anywhere intentionally were all present. But the bed sheets from the master bedroom were missing. The bed frame sat empty, stripped of its linens. This detail, seemingly small, would become significant. An officer at the scene called Adam directly. Over the phone, Adam explained that he had last seen Malene around 10 that morning. He said he had taken the minivan to his parents' house and then to a storage unit. When he returned home, his own car was still there, and Malene was not. He said he tried calling her around 3:30 and 3:45, and when she did not answer, he picked up the children himself. The officer noted Adam's explanation that he had taken melatonin and sounded groggy. He noted the missing sheets. He noted the phone left behind. He noted that nothing about this scene resembled a person who had left voluntarily. As investigators began to piece together the circumstances of Malene's disappearance, they turned to the people who knew her best. Malene's friend, the one who had gone to the house at Adam's request, was asked a direct question. Was there anyone in Malene's life who might have had a reason to harm her? Her answer came without hesitation: Adam Fravel. But the investigators were confused. Adam had introduced himself as Malene's boyfriend. The friend corrected them. Adam and Malene were no longer together. Their relationship had been over for months, though they continued to live under the same roof. This revelation shifted the entire investigation. The friend explained that Malene had been planning to move out, searching for a new place where she could live separately with her children. She described the years of emotional strain. She described Adam's refusal to work. She described the ways he controlled Malene, even as she worked full-time, attended graduate school, and managed the household. And then she described the FaceTime call. She told investigators exactly what she had witnessed: Adam shouting, Malene responding, and then, in full view of the camera, Adam striking Malene across the face. The friend had watched it happen. She had been helpless on the other end of the call. She had urged Malene to go to the police afterward, and Malene had refused. She did not want Adam to face legal trouble. She did not want the father of her children to have a criminal record. She was trying to protect her children from the consequences of his actions, even as she herself was enduring those actions. The friend also told investigators about Malene's sister, Megan, who had also urged Malene to report the abuse. Both women had tried to convince Malene to protect herself. Both had been met with the same refusal. Malene was trying to leave Adam, but she was trying to do it quietly, without conflict, without legal entanglements. She was trying to protect her children, and now she was gone. While Adam Fravel sat for his interview with police, investigators were already working to verify every detail of his timeline. What they found would expose the first major inconsistency in his account. Between 9:45 and 10 o'clock on the morning Malene disappeared, surveillance footage captured a person outside the home tampering with the license plate of Malene's small car. That person was Adam. He was removing the plate from Malene's car and swapping it with the plate from his own vehicle. Investigators later confirmed this when the same vehicle appeared in subsequent footage with the plates restored to their original positions. The only logical explanation for swapping license plates was an attempt to avoid detection. A vehicle with mismatched plates would not be easily identified by police systems, traffic cameras, or automated checkpoints. After this alteration, the vehicle was driven to a gas station and returned to the house around 10:30. Then, at 11:26, the vehicle left again. It was seen traveling toward Mayo, the town where Adam's parents lived. At 11:59, it appeared on camera moving south. Then there was a gap. For 46 minutes, the vehicle disappeared from every available camera along the route. At 12:45, it reappeared, traveling north back toward Winona. 46 minutes unaccounted for. When investigators confronted Adam with this discrepancy during his interview, his response was not an explanation. He told them his wall was going up. He said he had been compliant, but now he felt accused. The detective reminded him that he was the last person to have seen Malene. He was the last one with her. Her car was still there. Her phone was still there. Her jacket was still there. And somewhere in those 46 minutes, the man who had swapped license plates, who had disabled his digital tracking, who had removed cameras from his home, could not account for his location. Adam maintained his innocence. He said he was just as confused as everyone else. But the gap in his timeline remained, and investigators knew that gaps like this one rarely existed by accident. With no sign of Malene and no confession from Adam, the search for the missing mother expanded across the rural landscape of southeastern Minnesota. Volunteers came from surrounding communities. Law enforcement agencies coordinated ground searches, aerial surveillance, and door-to-door inquiries. Malene's sister Megan refused to let the public forget. She began posting daily videos on TikTok, her face appearing in millions of feeds as she described her sister, shared photographs, and pleaded for information. The videos were raw. Megan did not hide her exhaustion or her fear. She spoke directly to the camera as if she were speaking to the person who had taken her sister. She asked for help. She asked for answers. She asked for Malene to be brought home. The posts went viral. Strangers who had never met Malene began sharing her photograph. Search parties organized themselves through social media. The reward for information grew to $50,000, contributed by community members and organizations who wanted to help. But week after week, the searches yielded nothing. Investigators expanded their focus to the areas surrounding the towns of Choice and Mayo, where Adam had family land. They combed through wooded areas, drainage ditches, and gravel roads. They interviewed neighbors. They reviewed surveillance footage from rural properties, many of which had cameras installed for agricultural or security purposes. Adam, meanwhile, remained free. He had not been charged with any crime. He continued to deny involvement. He continued to maintain that he had no idea what happened to the mother of his children. 2 months passed. The search continued through April, through May, into early June. Malene's 27th birthday came and went without her. Her family marked the day privately, holding on to hope, even as that hope began to feel like a weight they could no longer carry. They continued to post updates. They continued to search. They continued to wait. On June 7, 2023, a police officer was examining a remote area alongside a gravel road between the towns of Choice and Mayo. The land was not unknown to investigators. It belonged to a member of the Fravel family, the same family whose son had been the last person to see Malene alive. The officer moved through tall grass, scanning the drainage ditch that ran parallel to the road. The ditch was narrow, easily overlooked by anyone passing by, but something caught his attention. A gray bedsheet, tightly wrapped and secured with black tape, was visible among the vegetation. The sheet was the same color and type as the bedding that had been missing from Maline's home on the day she disappeared. The tape matched rolls that investigators had previously documented inside the Kingsbury residence. The officer did not disturb the bundle. He called for backup. Forensic teams arrived and cordoned off the area. What they found inside that sheet would end the search that had consumed 2 months of their lives. Maline Kingsbury was there. She had been wrapped in the sheet, bound with tape, and left in a drainage ditch on land connected to Adam Fravel's family. A rope was found wrapped around her neck. The medical examiner would later confirm that her death was a homicide. The location of her body was significant. It was not a random spot. It was near the home of Adam's parents, in an area where Adam had been seen on surveillance footage driving a utility vehicle while carrying a shovel. It was an area that investigators had been searching, but one that had remained hidden long enough to delay justice. The discovery was made just 1 week after what would have been Maline's 27th birthday. Later that same day, Adam Fravel was arrested at his parents' home. He was charged with second-degree murder. Maline's sister Megan posted one more video. Her voice was steady. She confirmed the arrest. She said she was waiting for more information. She did not celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. With Maline's body discovered and Adam Fravel in custody, investigators began uncovering the full extent of the actions he had taken before and after her disappearance. The pattern that emerged was one of deliberate, calculated effort. On March 30th, the day before Maline vanished, Adam had systematically disabled every form of digital tracking connected to him. He turned off location services on his iCloud account. He disabled GPS tracking on his iPhone. He deactivated the GPS system in his vehicle. He even turned off advertising trackers, the kind that most people never think about. He was trying to erase himself from digital records. He had also removed cameras from several locations he visited, including cameras that had been installed inside his own home. These were not the actions of an innocent man. After Maline's body was found, investigators searched the trash containers behind Adam's parents' home. Inside, they discovered several of Maline's electronic devices. A laptop computer had been burned, its data destroyed beyond recovery. They also located the shovel that Adam had been seen carrying on his neighbor's surveillance footage. The footage, captured approximately 10 days after Maline disappeared, showed Adam driving a utility terrain vehicle through the wooded area behind his parents' property. In the back of the vehicle, a shovel was clearly visible. The area he was driving through was the same area where Maline's body was eventually discovered. Investigators could not determine whether he was returning to the site or attempting to move the body to a different location. The shovel was collected as evidence. Additionally, investigators learned that Maline had a life insurance policy through her employment at the Mayo Clinic. The policy was valued at approximately $170,000. The beneficiary was Adam Fravel, to be held in trust for their children. If Maline's death had been ruled an accident, or if no crime had been discovered, Adam would have controlled those funds. The accumulation of evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors upgraded the charges. Adam Fravel was accused of first-degree murder. Adam Fravel's trial began in the fall of 2024, more than a year after Maline Kingsbury's body was discovered in the drainage ditch on his family's land. The courtroom was filled with family members, journalists, and observers who had followed the case since the first TikTok video went viral. Prosecutors laid out their case methodically. They presented the timeline. They showed the surveillance footage of Adam swapping license plates. They highlighted the 46-minute gap in his travel records. They played the interrogation audio where Adam told investigators his wall was going up. They displayed the bedsheet, the tape, the rope. They called witnesses who described the abuse Maline had endured. They showed the neighbors footage of Adam driving through the woods with a shovel. They presented the burned laptop, the disabled tracking devices, the life insurance policy. Adam's defense team argued that the evidence was circumstantial. They pointed to the absence of DNA or forensic proof directly linking Adam to the act of killing. But the jury was asked to consider the totality of the evidence. They deliberated. They reviewed the timeline. They considered the fact that Adam had been the last person with Malene. They considered the missing sheets. They considered the location where her body was found. They considered the destroyed electronics. When they returned to the courtroom, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges. On December 17, 2024, Adam Fravel stood before the judge for sentencing. Malene's family spoke about the children who would grow up without their mother, about the daughter who was taken from them, about the emptiness that would never be filled. Adam was given the opportunity to speak. He told the court he had never caused harm to Malene. He said he was innocent. He thanked the judge. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. After the sentencing, a reporter asked Malene's sister Megan about Adam maintaining his innocence. She did not hesitate. She said he did not have to admit it. It would not make it any better if he did. Malene Kingsbury was 27 years old. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was a woman who worked hard and loved deeply. And in the end, the person responsible for her death was not a stranger. It was the person who was supposed to be there.